Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us today. We're just going to give it a minute or two for a few more folks to jump on. And we'll be starting at about 1 to 2 minutes after the hour. Okay, folks, I think we'll get going. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy days to join us for this session today. Whether you're on the East Coast or the West Coast, so good morning, good afternoon. My name is Jim Adams, and I'm the Vice President of Worldwide Channels here at Adlumin. And again, we thank you for joining us. Before we jump in, I just want to give you a sense of some housekeeping items. Everybody, when they joined, is on mute. So if you have a specific question or something that you want to address with us, please use the raise your hand icon. We are going to have a Q&A session at the end of our discussion here today. So you can wait for the Q&A, or again, if you'd like, raise your hand, or in the chat window or in the question window, post your question there, and we'll make sure that we address it at the end of our session. Again, this session is being recorded, so we're going to be providing a replay of the session to you to provide to others in your organization who may not have been able to attend. And again, I think we'll just jump in. If we can go to the agenda slide. So we've got a really full session today and a really interesting session and an incredibly timely topic. We're going to introduce in just a moment Rob Johnston. Rob is the CEO of Adlumin, but Rob's got a really interesting background and brings a lot of credibility into this space, and particularly into this particular issue with what happened at SolarWinds and the breach that occurred, which frankly is making a lot of headlines. It's getting a lot of attention, but it's really important that we, as kind of diligent consumers, understand what happened there and what some of the challenges were and things that we can do to protect ourselves. So that's what Rob is going to talk about. He's going to talk about the breach. He's going to talk about some of the things that happened and how you can protect your business. And then he'll also speak to you about Adlumin as a company to give you a sense as to what Adlumin does and how we might, as a company, have been effective in helping to mitigate or deal with or understand the breach that happened. And then we'll close with the Q&A and talk about the ICBA member discount. But before we jump in, I just want to thank our partners and friends at ICBA for hosting us today. So Adlumin and ICBA have had a nice long relationship going back for a while now. We started off with their Think Tech Accelerator program. We were finalists in that. We were hugely honored to be selected as their ICBA preferred service provider in November of 2019. We participated in a lot of the sessions that they do, ICBA Connected Think Tech Showcase coming up. So we ask you to join us for that. But what we hope to accomplish today is really support ICBA and their efforts in helping educate you, their member organizations, so that you're more aware of what is happening in the world of cybersecurity and some of the things that ICBA can bring to you to help make sure that you stay safe and you keep your assets and your customers safe. So with that, I'm going to introduce Rob Johnston. So again, Rob is the CEO of Adlumin. Rob has a really interesting background through the military and with his time at the NSA and starting this company. So maybe, Rob, maybe I'll start it off just by asking you to give us a sense of your background. What are some of the interesting things that you've been doing, and tell us about yourself if you would.
Sure. My name is Robert Johnston, founder here at Adlumin. I grew up, I have a fairly interesting, I think, security background, at least starting in 2008. I originally was in the Marine Corps doing a lot of cyber defense. I had some really fortunate opportunities there. I was the director of the Marine Corps Red Team running offensive cyber operations against our classified and unclassified networks in in the Marine Corps network, the Marine Corps Enterprise Security Center. I got the opportunity to work for the National Security Agency. That was some exciting work. I did some offensive stuff there. I did a lot of defensive cyber investigations, so incident response investigations. Most notably, I got to run the investigation of the Russian breach of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I left military service. I went to the private sector. Had some exciting opportunities in the private sector. Worked for a firm called CrowdStrike. I ran the DNC hack, a bunch of different really unique breaches. Had a lot of fun there. And then, in 2017, I decided to leave and really bring to the security analytics space what CrowdStrike brought to endpoint security, which is cloud native scalability, serverless computing, all the different advantages of being able to provide bulk data analytics in a really cost efficient way to the financial services sector, which data is increasing. The amount of cyber data and technology data is certainly exponentially increasing, and there's no reason that you should be charged more for data velocity and data quantity, right? Which are the advantages of the backbone of our technology, which is based on serverless computing. So that's kind of my background.
Cool background, Rob. NSA, Joint Chiefs. Did you ever meet Edward Snowden at the NSA?
I did not. I came into the NSA just a little. 2013, I think I came there. Snowden was 2012, so it was just at the tail end of that. I of course got to experience all the ripple effects of that, right? But like more stringent polygraphs and more stringent insider threat programs and access control issues, which access control is great from a security perspective, but when you're a user and you're like, oh goodness, I got to get like 5 people to sign off on this, and I have a hard every time I got to get a new account for a whole bunch of different things, so it can be a little bit of a nuisance. So I got to experience the aftermath.
My guess is that the NSA probably could have benefited from Adlumin and the technologies that we have today.
Sure. And that's NSA is a unique organization. A lot of people don't realize a couple of things. One, it's a DoD support agency. So the NSA is staffed by at least like 50-60% military officers or military personnel. It is an intelligence agency, but it is a DoD, Department of Defense support intelligence agency. So it's more than 50% of its workforce is uniformed, military personnel, and it's huge. It's got like 40,000 people in it, from military to contractors spread all over the world. It's a lot different than something like the CIA, which the CIA is still a large organization, but it's very lean, very lean, very elite. It's like a very different organization. It's not as big as NSA.
So Rob, you had success there. You did some really interesting, cool things. Why Adlumin? What were you looking to accomplish, and when you started this company?
So serverless computing was just taking off at the time, and really now it's only 6-7 years old. It was just coming into into the mainstream, and it still hasn't even broke its way completely in there. It's still kind of making its way in there, and there are considerable engineering advantages over legacy server technologies that are applied to that come from serverless computing. Mainly data velocity. So anything where you have an events per second limitation of any kind, right, is completely negated in serverless computing, because there is no waste when it comes to serverless computing. So before, in order to scale something to a certain events per second load, you essentially had to scale it vertically, right? Which means a lot of people just went way high into the right, like let's just load this thing out so that we won't have a problem later with growth, which ballooned costs, and those ballooning costs were then passed on to the customer to pay for those ballooning resources. Where serverless computing is a totally different mindset, in that you pay for the time it takes for you to compute something. So if it's 5 milliseconds to compute something, you pay for 5 milliseconds of time, and then that's it, and then it goes away, right? And so you're getting rid of the vertical scaling and going to really a performance model. How performant and how fast can I make my code that's running? And then of course, a horizontal scaling model, which was a lot better, and it serves a different purpose. And then second, we wanted to create an analytics solution, right? A serverless analytics solution, something that was taking advantage of this. Security is an ideal place for that. One, my background, of course, was in security, so that's why we chose security. But there's a lot of data, and there's exponentially growing amounts of data in security. You've got logs from every which way. You've got logs from the cloud, logs from servers, logs from syslog devices, logs from mobile devices. Like, just the amount of data that's being expected that banks are consuming is growing exponentially. And that events per second model, and then leveraging data lake technology, that data storage, data quantity model is breaking a bank's ability to achieve its security and compliance objectives. So we wanted to build a solution from the ground up that was completely cloud native, that we could disregard most of the obstacles for community banks when it comes to how much data you're going to send a platform, and at the speed by which you send that data to a platform. And we were able to build a solution and find a model that really works really well, that allows banks to achieve all their security and compliance, automation goals.
So leveraging serverless computers, leveraging cloud native technologies, outstanding. We're going to talk a little bit about Adlumin and the platform and the technology a little bit later on in the session. So now, for all of the ICBA member organizations, let's actually get into the meat of it. They've heard so much about the SolarWinds breach, and it's gotten so much national and international news and press and attention. Help us understand actually what happened there. What tell us the background of this and put it in context and perspective so we understand what this really was all about.
Sure. So the SolarWinds breach was conducted by an actor commonly called APT29, which lines up to the Russian SVR. For those not familiar with Russian SVR is their principal foreign intelligence collection agency inside the Russian Federation. It's akin to our Central Intelligence Agency. So the agency primarily responsible for foreign intel collection, and certainly primarily responsible for foreign intel collection against the United States. Oddly enough, this is a group that I was very familiar with. It's the same group. APT29 is the same group of people that breached the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in 2015. They breached the Executive Office of the President, so EOP, Department of State, in 2014. The Democratic National Committee in 2015, 2016, and then now, of course, you've got the SolarWinds breach. Fundamentally, they're calling the SolarWinds breach a supply chain compromise, which isn't, I think, an accurate classification for it, in that they attacked the software build pipeline for an organization that provides updates to software in the field. In the field being SolarWinds installations at your various organizational levels. So being able to compromise that software build pipeline and Trojanize the updates does compromise the supply chain of how an end unit community bank gets their updates, right? Their update mechanism for their software. What I noticed about this breach and those that were affected is a couple of things. One is IT security and administrative systems are often, I think, the most overlooked systems inside of an environment.
So very vulnerable spots within an
very vulnerable spots. Yeah, exactly. It's an often a system you might call like a system of record, right, where it lives outside of the boundaries and constraints that even a normal desktop computer. Sometimes they don't have antivirus. Sometimes you're not logging into that system with a domain account. You're using a local administrative account. Like, it's a system where a lot of times the rules are broken, right? The rules, even for a financial institution, are broken on that system. And so, what does that result in? It results in a very vulnerable system. It usually results in a system with highly privileged access. And that system is usually used to monitor and control every other system in your environment, except maybe excluding your core banking platform, which is running on, like, an old AS400, or maybe it's cloud-based. So that is one. Those systems are living outside of the boundaries of normal security posture. Vendor updates also are considered good. I think people need to realize that there is nothing you could do as a bank to affect what SolarWinds was doing with their software design and software development pipeline. You can't control the passwords that they use for their FTP server. It was SolarWinds 123 or something ridiculously simple like that. Like, you don't have any control as a bank. You don't have any control over that. So you need to really focus in on what it is that you can actually control. And the last thing to realize is this was a failed intelligence operation. This was highly targeted. Out of the 18,000 potential organizations that could have been affected by the breach, a very less than 1% were actually chosen and targeted for for follow-on exploitation. And the reason for that is because SVR is an intelligence collection agency. They aren't necessarily, not to say that these foreign intel agencies wouldn't ever participate in something like monetary theft, which would probably be the primary primary reason that you would be worried at a financial institution. But stealing money is not their primary thing, right? Their primary thing is stealing intelligence, like finding intelligence. So that is something to be cognizant of.
So clearly there must have been some contributing factors, things that were in place or not in place that allowed this to happen. What were they? What do you think contributed to this organization's ability to get in?
The biggest piece is probably that these systems were most commonly overlooked. There's two locations, I think, that you can really really focus on to detect this detect this kind of attack. First is malware installation. So detection at the file level. That's for your anti-malware platform. And then detection of post-exploitation activities. That's for either both your malware platform, your behavior analytics platform, and then you've got you need the ability to do retroactive analysis, and that's just straight log retention, right? These things are going to happen where a breach comes out and it's like, there's been a big problem for like 10, 11 months, right? And now you've got to ask the question, like, can I go back 10, 11 months and review data and review information? And a lot of people can't do that, right? It's hard, it's expensive. Data lake technology is the solution of today to actually get that done in a cheap and effective way. And also something very important we brought into our platform was to be able to retain data for a long period of time. But the biggest piece is, these security systems, oftentimes live outside of the normal rules. Like, they don't get patches and updates like they should. People don't log into those systems and have least privilege isn't enforced on those systems like it should be. And that's because they have a very specific use case. And oftentimes, IT administrators are taking the path of least resistance. This is a very common problem a lot of people talk about in IT. And so they break the rules a lot, and these systems become more vulnerable because of that.
So what are the consequences as a result of what happened? What do you think are the takeaways here based upon this particular breach, or maybe even in general for breaches of this type?
So there's two things that you need to be able to do. One is detect activity in real time, and the other is have an ability to look back the required amount of distance that you need to be able to look back in order to answer questions, sometimes 11, 12 months in retrograde, right? And so, or in hindsight. So, what you need is that anti-malware platform is very important, detecting, malware and post-exploitation activities at, the point of entry. So using things like behavior analytics, using things like, good EDR platforms, using SIM tools to be able to correlate data across multiple different data streams. Using those is a very, very, positive thing. The second thing is integrating of data lake technology, the integration of data lake technology, right? These things are going to happen. They're going to come up. A breach happened 11 months ago. I now have to answer legitimate questions from 11 months ago, right? And you've got to be able to do that because there's, you got to think the Russian SVR has an unlimited amount of resources. Like if they want a target, their whole purpose in life is to break into that target, right? And they'll spend billions of dollars just to do it. And that's just the role that intelligence services play in international geopolitics. So they are very well resourced, more resourced than any criminal. And if they want to spend the money and have the time, you need to be able to make sure that you are best positioned to answer questions at any portion, at any time during the attack lifecycle, and also, answer those questions for as long as possible.
So you mentioned behavior analytics, and you also mentioned log retention, the ability to look back. You mentioned that a few times, and how important it is to be able to have a kind of a trail, a paper trail, so that if you do get breached, if there are bad actors and things do happen, you can go back in a historical view to find out where they were, how they got in, how long they've been there, and what type of damage. But what other tools and what other actions should our banking customers be taking now? The log retention, that's huge. That makes so much sense. What else should they be thinking about?
Behavior analytics is the next logical thing, and that, there's a lot of different places in security to apply data analytics, right? They apply it in anti-malware, so detecting, unknown, potentially malicious software. And it also, applies in post-exploitation activities, which I actually think was the most important here. Your SolarWinds system may or may not have even had antivirus installed on it, because again, sometimes they live outside the bounds. So you have post-exploitation activities that are important to monitor there. Mapping of shares, moving between systems, stealing and dumping passwords, creating accounts both at the local and domain level. These are all things that are potentially could open a backdoor into your environment and allow that backdoor to persist for a very long period of time. And so it is important, and I think it is very important for us to be looking at data analytics that focus in on post-exploitation activities. Then after it passes the analytic process, you of course want to retain it for a long period of time using a data lake of some sort, right? To be able to go back and grab that information or grab that event if you were to ever need it.
So post-exploitation activities and analytics can actually help give us visibility and patterns into the future so that we can learn from what happened, whether it's within an individual bank's environment or from what we're seeing in the industry. So those are really key. Log retention, the ability to historically look back, post-exploitation activities those are key.
Yeah, absolutely. And log retention doesn't just have security applications, right? It's got compliance applications. Like your auditors are coming in and telling you, I want to know every account that was created last year, or I want to know every change that you made to an account last year, or show me what happened to this account last year, right? So these are just compliance questions that when you can't answer them, of course, send you into a tailspin, right? Everyone gets all flustered. Oh, the auditor asked for something. I must immediately provide that for them, which is true. And so, these things, the reason that they're asking for that is because of situations just like this, right? I want you to prove to me that you can answer this question about last January or last February because of, now they can say because of the SolarWinds breach, right? Because that was a great example of showing you that, in reality, you need to be able to answer questions from a very long search horizon.
So all of our customers, all of our attendees on this call today have to deal with compliance. They have to deal with auditing. They have to deal with the ability to provide those answers. So this is really timely and important for everybody on this call. So now, what about Adlumin? Could you give us, who is Adlumin? What do you do? And help us understand what Adlumin's value add and value proposition to banking customers could be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Adlumin is the security and compliance automation platform purpose-built for financial institutions. We are using serverless analytics to do data analytics across events that are taking place within a user's environment. We have data lake technology built in to our cloud-native platform that allows incredibly vast search horizons, or very long search horizons, so that you can answer all of these questions. We using serverless analytics, you of course have no events per second, no data limitations, no, you only get 200 gigabits a month, and after 200 gigabytes, your time is up. There's none of that going on, inside of Adlumin. In addition to that, we have a lot of really special compliance tools and technology tools that exist only within our company. To name a few is, completely integrated FFIEC CAT, and soon to be Intrex. And then, of course, we've got our core banking security module. So if you have an on-premise core that's running, the AS400 or AIX, things like Jack Henry Silver Lake, also HPUX. If you're running these incredibly old platforms, Adlumin has patented security technology that allows you to integrate those platforms into your overarching security and compliance ecosystem. So we're finally allowing, customers to be able to integrate where a core banking platform is in the same boat as SolarWinds. It oftentimes also lives outside of the rules, right? It lives outside of the security ecosystem. It doesn't have antivirus, it doesn't have access control, because no one knows how to run a mainframe, or the knowledge base of running a mainframe computer isn't quite there, or left 10 years ago, or whatever it is. So these systems are the most important, I think, to financial institutions, but oftentimes represent the greatest risk. Like when we do installs on AS400s or AIX, like they're the only thing separating the complete destruction of billions of dollars at a financial institution is like a username and password that may or may not even be very strong, and that's the username and password to the mainframe, and then beyond that, that's it, right? And so we've changed the game with that, and allowed banks to integrate that core technology into their overarching security and compliance ecosystem.
So it's interesting. I bet a lot of our attendees today didn't realize that Adlumin was purpose-built for banks. And you mentioned compliance reporting, one-touch compliance reporting built in. You mentioned your patent on core banking. Are there any other services that Adlumin delivers that could be of value to our banking customers?
Yeah, so we've got all those reports that you need. We're delivering them on the ready schedule. Like every week, you'll get your account manipulation report or object manipulation report, tracking all your changes, board and IT steering committee reports. And we even have specific use case based search functionality where we know that so-and-so comes in and wants to, some auditor comes in and says, I want to know, show me all the accounts that were created last year. And the barriers to entry of being able to run that search are like zero. You just type in the name of the change that you're looking for, choose the date, time, range, and press search, and it will return all that data and information to you. So we really geared a lot of our search functionality to just so you can offload the stress of these common gotcha questions that come in. Like I just had a question for a bank come in that they had one system. It was a banking system. And they were like, I want to see all the logs for this system, for the past 12 months. Like, and the first question is what's all the logs? It's like, well, I want to see like file creation, process execution, logons, object manipulation, like changes. And it's like, okay, let's just run this search and export the report. Done. Here you go. Right? call me later, and so it was a very, very simple thing to do. And, it's only because of our understanding of this domain and our customers that we've built things like this.
And that's so key, because you were built specifically for banking customers, for banks, and you had a lot of input from banks in the design of the platform. Really, what you're delivering is purpose-built for not only the technology, but the business problems that our banking customers are facing. Interesting.
That's right.
Great. Great. So now we talked a little bit about the SolarWinds breach. We talked about some of the obstacles and the consequences, and we talked about Adlumin. Now let's tie the two together. What could Adlumin have done, or what, better said, what role could Adlumin have played in a breach like this?
So behavior analytics on post-exploitation activities is, the first stage, right? So being able to detect, those events and activities from occurring at the point in time in which they had happened, and then once that's over, if they defeat that, then it goes to long-term data storage and retention, right? Being able to retain data and information for a very long, extended period of time. And so, that is our data lake technology. And then, being able to search across that is very important, which that and the threat intelligence integration are kind of one and the same, in that, threat intelligence integration is definitely important because this data and information from SolarWinds eventually did make it into threat intel. And so, being able to automatically consume threat intelligence and run threat intelligence against your information or against your log data is very important, and being able to run it across a large search history of log data is equally as important, and doing it in an automated way. Not only is this just a good thing to do because it's the smart thing to do, but it is also, FFIEC domain 2 requirement, right? So, and the reason it's a requirement is because it is a smart thing to do. And so, we're able to allow any one of our customers to achieve an intermediate level on FFIEC domain 2 by being able to search, automatically correlate, and share, threat intelligence information among their peers. Being able to do that is an important component of kind of mixing that with the data lake technology for that long range search horizon.
So you mentioned some really important things: purpose built for banking, one-touch compliance reporting, log retention and storage, and the ability to easily search and get historical information, post-exploit activities, behavioral analytics. So if you could just kind of summarize for us, what are the key takeaways? What should, if you only remember one slide and only, one thing from this discussion, what are those key takeaways for this audience?
Yeah, I can narrow them down to a few, right? Behavior analytics on post-exploitation activity, and have a data lake so that you can have long-range search horizon, like those two things. And I think we've hammered on them quite a bit during this talk, and they're really the only things that could help you. Like, you can't control SolarWinds, nothing you can do there, right? I would actually put a third one in there, and the very last one is geolocation blocking. Almost no banks that we've interacted with has done, there's a few that do it well, but has done geolocation blocking really, in a skillful way. And that can eliminate a lot of attacks. Essentially, now you're forcing the Russians to pivot from US-based technology in order to continue their attack, right? And so, from the land to the WAN, geo-blocking can actually help you overcome a lot of threats within the world.
Outstanding. So, Rob, thank you very much for your insight into the SolarWinds breach, and frankly, the security landscape in general, and your positioning of Adlumin and what Adlumin does, and as a platform, how it can be of benefit to our banking customers. That was outstanding. So for those of you on the call today, before we get into the Q&A session, and I'll open up in just a minute, I see we have at least one question. if you want to learn more about the Adlumin platform, our security and compliance platform, we're going to give you a contact information at the end. You can schedule an overview. We can do a private demo and tour of the platform for you. We can do a proof of value in your organization, a no cost, no obligation, 2-week proof of value, so you can deploy Adlumin and actually start to collect some of these analytics and understand what's happening in your network. And then, of course, join us for ICBA's ThinkTech Showcase on the 16th of March. So we'll give you some contact information, but again, Rob, thank you very much. This was outstanding. Let me go to questions and see what we have. I have one question that I see here, Rob. I'm going to paraphrase the question, if I may. You mentioned core banking. What does that mean? You have a patent on core banking. What exactly does your core banking patent do? And I apologize if I screwed up the question that was asked.
Sure. So we have a patent on anomaly detection on core banking systems. So essentially using data analytics methods to find threats, malfunctions, and IT operations on core banking systems is what our patent involves. It is always, right now it's mostly on-prem or, data center hosted, core banking solutions. But our goal is to allow you to integrate your, your core banking platform into your overarching security and compliance ecosystem, which this is a commonly forgotten about system, or in some cases it is multiple systems, but it is a commonly forgotten about system, and it's the most important one a financial institution has, and so let's take care of it. Let's treat it like the most important system.
Great. Let me just check. If anyone has a question, please feel free to either raise your hand or put it in the question or the chat window. Rob, I'm going to just look one more time and see if there's any other questions. Just a quick question about pricing. How do you price? Again, I'm going to paraphrase it. How do we price the platform? Is it based upon users? Is it based upon bandwidth? How do you price the platform?
So it's just a firm fixed price per device. So a laptop costs the same as a firewall, or a laptop costs the same as a Office 365 and Azure Active Directory in an API integration. Everything just counts as one. So it's a firm, flat, fixed price per device. There are no data limitations. There are no data velocity limitations, no events per second limitations. It's just a flat fee per device. And then you get a certain number of devices, and we usually throw in just a few extra to account for incremental growth over time.
Okay, got it. Let me just check. Can you? Oh, yeah. We'll send you. Someone else will send you a data sheet so that we can do. Okay, so I think that wraps it up. Again, Rob, thanks for the session and for the Q&A. Everybody who attended, don't forget, everybody who attended today's session gets a $5 Starbucks gift card. So please check your email box, and you should see a way to redeem that $5 gift card. If you want more information about Adlumin, obviously you can go to our website, adlumin.com/ICBA, or you can contact either myself, Jim Adams, at jim.adams@adlumin.com, or Rob's business partner and other co-founder, Tim Evans, at timothy.evans@adlumin.com. Again, we thank you for your time and attention and taking time out of your busy day today. Hopefully, this gave you some insight as to what happened and how you can better protect yourself. And again, we really want to thank our partners at ICBA for allowing us to present today and for putting on this type of content to serve their member organizations. We know it's valuable. So with that, our session is over today. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.